You have tuned into the BearDown Corner with your host, Sergeant Julio. Hey everybody, this is Sergeant Julio and you've tuned into the BearDown Corner. Let's get you caught up on all the action from Week 1 scheduled slate as the NFL season has now begun once again. All right. Thursday night, we had Dallas going into the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, where they battled it out in a hell of a contest that was literally back and forth. Defensively, Cowboys need to get better. They got to trade, they got to improve, they got to do something. But they didn't look all that bad, though, considering they just traded away Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers literally just the week before. So for a group that was already without a former superstar, they tried to, help out on the run defense by picking up Kenny Clark. Didn't go over too well. Javonte Williams ran in for 2 touchdowns under 60 yards for the night. But hey, you know what though? It was a valiant effort for that team. But at the end, Mr. Hurts ran 2 of his own touchdowns and ended up tossing enough air yards to make sure that they would get the 24-20 win. Friday night, we had the Kansas City Chiefs going into the Los Angeles Chargers. Another back-and-forth contest. This game was in Paulo, Brazil, by the way. So, an international game. You got former 2-time and current lost AFC champions Kansas City Chiefs playing against their division rival in the Chargers. And honestly, Justin Herbert looked really good. And it's amazing what happens when Quentin Johnston actually catches the ball with, I believe it was about 7 catches for somewhere in the 80-yard, 2 touchdowns, though, the kid had. Finally, the former number 1 pick is showing signs of what made them draft him in the first round. But hey, you know what? That's okay, because when you got Herbert at quarterback throwing for over 318 yards and 3 pass touchdowns, and he made Keenan Allen look like he was never gone, and yet Ladd McConkey still had a, fairly common good night for himself. He had his target share and everything else, so they have a very balanced attack right now. And they did that against a Kansas City defense that, they didn't lose Steve Spagnuolo. So, I don't know, Chiefs fans, you got some figuring out to do because you guys lost that one 27-21. The Chargers came out on top. That's their first win in, I think, 6 matchups prior to that. So, congratulations, Los Angeles. Tampa Bay rolled into Atlanta where they battled it out with the Falcons. Michael Penix Jr. making his first career home opener start, and he did fairly well for the young quarterback making his 4th ever NFL start. He passed a touchdown. He ran a touchdown. Bijan Robinson looked really damn good, but they still kept him in check enough. He got hot with a 50-yard scamper for a reception right off the bat in the beginning of the game. But after that, they cooled him down a little bit. So it was a hard-fought battle back and forth. But in the end, here's a rookie that you might want to keep an eye on, Egbuka. The wide receiver drafted in the 2nd round had 4 receptions for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. His 2nd touchdown of the game, I thought that ball was going to Mike Evans. That's the kind of placement this kid had where he was literally 2 yards over and everyone was focused on Evans. He just popped in and grabbed the ball and came down. It was awesome. 23-20 was the total in that game for Tampa Bay coming away with the win. A little interesting note on that, the kicker, Koo's his name. He missed a game-tying field goal at the end of that game, too, though, by the way. So let's not forget that. He had a rough day. I think he missed, it was 2 or 3 kicks total that day. Moving along, we got Pittsburgh and the Jets. I watched the entirety of that game. What a back-and-forth contest. All I'm going to say is if you got a couple of these guys on your fantasy squads, it's good backups. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't quite start everyone, but there's some good talent on both these teams. Jaylen Warren, Mr. Austin, the 2nd wide receiver on the Steelers, he showed up on Sunday, helping Aaron Rodgers as he completed 4 touchdown passes for the multiple time in his career. He's done it so many times, it seems like it's just natural for the guy, but threw for 244 and 4 passing touchdowns. He's 42 years old and looks like he hasn't slacked off all that much. They got away with the win 34-32. Justin Fields ran in a pair of touchdowns and threw another one to Wilson, his wide receiver. Breece Hall looked pretty solid. Just a good overall back and forth game. Really defensively, Jets, I'm kind of wondering where you went, and also Steelers. Like, you guys were a little bit more dominant than that, but beginning week, maybe it was just one of those games, right? Sometimes they get away on you and the offense has to just shoot it out. So Pittsburgh wins that one 34-32. Miami rolls into Indianapolis to lose. That's right. I'm going to just straight out say like that. Miami went into Indy, and the parts I caught from the highlights and the bit that I've got, seen on that game, they got trampled. They got tossed around and trampled. And I like the story I read about the former DB/safety. He's kind of played a little bit in both in his career. Xavier Howard, former Miami Dolphin, by the way, for many, many seasons. He is with Indianapolis, and he remembers something about Tua. Tua's not necessarily a one-trick pony, but he's very quick on his throws. It's first read and out. But they created chaos on that because Tua looked like he was lost on Sunday. Daniel Jones looked like an NFL starting quarterback, throwing for a touchdown to Michael Pittman and rushing 2 of his own in. He had no interceptions. In fact, you know what? I want to read Daniel Jones's numbers. He went 22 of 29 for 272 yards and the 3 touchdowns we just talked about. Pretty solid. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions. Congratulations on your week 1 win. But this is Miami, and I feel Miami's probably in line for a downturn of a year. Moving along, Carolina in Jacksonville, where Travis Etienne took complete control of that backfield on Sunday. The man rushed for 143 yards on close to 20 attempts. And he was on the field majority. The only reason he was taken off the field was to be given a break. It looks like Etienne has the grasp on number 1 in Jacksonville. Now, for fantasy owners, don't take that as a solid lock, but it's looking pretty damn good after week 1. Now, again, this is against Carolina, but Carolina looked solid at the end of last year. They improved a few things. Again, this is week 1. It could be all jitterbugs. Who knows what's going on? Either way, they walk away with the 26-10 win in Jacksonville. New York Giants go into Washington, where they get blown to a 21-6 loss. And highlight player of that game was Deebo Samuel, along with the rookie 6th-round pick McCrockett, I think his name is. He ran for about 80 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Daniels ran for a touchdown and just kept doing his, dances, really. The man was making plays on Sunday, enough to make enough passes to get the team in position so that they could run and toss it in. So Deebo had a rushing touchdown, a 19-yard rushing touchdown, and he caught 7 for 77 yards. I don't think he's washed up by any means. He's looking solid enough, again, against a Giants defense, but this Giants defense was supposed to be rock solid. This was their backbone this year. So what happened on that one? But really, they only gave up 21 points. So, I don't know. Things to come in New York. Hopefully not too much shit going down. Arizona travels to New Orleans to steal the road victory 2013, where Marvin Harrison was opening up the field to help the likes of Trey McBride and the rest of that offense in the exact way why he was drafted so high as a top 5 pick last year. He came in with 5 catches, 71 yards, and 1 touchdown. Now, not blow him out of the water numbers, but hey, that could be a constant for that guy this year. And that's just like the bare floor, I feel. 5 catches for Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a bottom floor minimum for this kid. I feel he's in tune for a big year. Big year. Finally Mr. Kyler Murray can become a top-tier quarterback by utilizing his weapons. Cincinnati goes into Cleveland and steals a road victory by 1 point. You know what? This is the only game that I picked as my highlight player on my little sheet here as the other team. I felt that Tillman, the wide receiver, Cedric Tillman Jr., or whatever the hell he goes by, he caught 5 catches for 52 yards and 1 touchdown, and he looked solid for Joe Flacco, unlike Jerry Jeudy, who dropped 3 goddamn passes in that game. In fact, I think it was 4. I don't know. I switched near the end. I was like, I'm done with this shit. But Cincinnati didn't look all that hot shit either. Jamar Chase was held to some of his lowest numbers in like 4 years. So Cincinnati, like, count your blessings, but Cleveland, you did not do a bad job on Sunday. Not at all. And that Dylan Sampson kid looked goddamn solid for you, too. He might just squeak in and say, hey, Judkins, you're going to be number 2 in my bitch. Because right now, he's looking solid as shit. Every pass I seen tossed at him, he did not drop one. And if it was only because it was interrupted by a monstrous fucking hit on him. But I think that was only one time in that game. Otherwise, he caught everything else. I think he had like 7 receptions that game, or 6 receptions. It was crazy. Otherwise, he controlled majority of the snaps with the offense. Cincinnati walks away 17-16 in Cleveland. All right, Las Vegas goes into New England and steals the win 20-13 as Geno Smith leads his offense. Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers as his leading receivers. Bowers had 5 catches for 103 yards in that game, and Myers had, I believe it was about 8 receptions, close to almost 90 yards in that game. So the ball is being spread around very evenly. You go like Geno Smith, okay, 362 yards. Now, he only threw 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and Gianti ran in the other touchdown. But you know what, though? Solid outing for a Las Vegas team going against a newly rebuilt New England team that's looking to have a big year this year, too. So far, like Las Vegas, they went in and they just took care of business. So congratulations, Las Vegas Raiders. San Francisco goes to Seattle, where in this game, tight end George Kittle went out. It's being called hamstring, but he's due for MRI, whatever, scans and x-rays, so that way they can fully determine. But he should be back, hopefully. If not a hamstring, maybe you're looking 4 to 6 weeks. But that's on the worst downturn. Now, in his replacement, the backup tight end caught a touchdown on Sunday. And also, let's not forget, Mr. Ricky Purcell, as I'm picking as their player of the game that stepped up when he had to. 4 catches, only 4, 108 yards. This guy was making big plays all goddamn day. Stretching the field, getting his team where they needed to be. So to that, good job, Ricky. You're doing just fine. San Francisco steals the win 17-13. And Sam Darnold had a bit of a rough outing. No touchdown passes. He fumbled. I think he threw 1 interception. So a couple turnovers. But, hey, shaky, brand new team, right? You got a new quarterback. You've done a whole swap. You have a whole identity swap that you did this year, Seattle. So we'll see how you do the next game. But really, though, that I seen that game. That game was not just like we just, like, when I mean they stole it, I mean they stole it. That defense and their defense went off on each other on Sunday. The offenses got their ass handed to one another. They freaking picked off Brock Purdy twice. So let's not forget that, though. But at the end of the day, he did enough to get his team to win. Tennessee goes into Denver, where they held the number 1 overall pick to 112 passing yards and made him very frustrated. The defense looked very good, to the point that I thought Patino was going to get a goddamn safety early on in the first half. But nonetheless, they come back, and Denver wasn't the greatest on offense, but they made the plays when they had to. Again, 2 very good defensive teams. I don't think we should sleep on Tennessee's defense this year. The only question mark for that team is how far can the offense take them. defensively, you held Denver to 20 points. And Denver was expected to be blowing out people this year. The next step in Bo Nix's transgression, right? So, you know what? Courtland Sutton, 6 catches, 61 yards, and 1 touchdown. Good enough for the day. Detroit goes into Green Bay to lose to the Green Bay Packers, 27-13. Josh Jacobs with 66 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. Detroit did not look like the Detroit of old. They looked like a piss-poor play calling by the offensive coordinator. Defensively, they were doing what they could, but you can only do it so long when the defense is being stuck out there every damn drive, though. They get tired after a while. In offense, you got to do more than 13 goddamn points after scoring an average of 30-plus every game last year. So, yeah, Detroit takes the knock on the noggin for an 0-1 start. Houston goes into Los Angeles Rams, and they lose 9-14. Los Angeles played very hard-nosed football on Sunday. And the result was a resounding holding Nico Collins to pedestrian numbers, shutting down most of the run game. Like, really, Nick Chubb's usage didn't really equivalent to as much as what people would have liked. He had 60-plus yards on the ground, but just it was just a bad effort, right? And then you got Stroud at the end having to try and pass his way to victory, which, of course, as he should, but they just locked that LA's defense looking scary. Just saying. Jared Verse did not train with Aaron Donald to just for the shits and giggles of it. Aaron Donald is a legend in his own right for a reason. Because the man's a freak. He could come back today and probably still be number 1 defensive tackle in the league. But on that note, Matthew Stafford, the 10th quarterback in NFL history to throw for over 60,000 passing yards. Congratulations, Mr. Stafford. And then the Sunday Nighter. Oh, baby, do we got some stats on this one. This game was a shit show. So, to very bluntly put it, it looked like Baltimore was going to dominate. Buffalo would come back and keep it within distance, and then they got down. They were down 15 points at one point, all right? Derrick Henry went off. He had a couple blow-off runs. He had 2 touchdowns, 169 for the night, and 1 fumble. Now, we'll come back to that fumble as Lamar also played a role with 209 passing yards, 70 rushing, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing. But that was not enough for what was to come. Because when you're down 15 points in the fourth quarter with, I think it was like 7:36 roughly left on the clock, they started grinding back. Keon Coleman catches a hell of a freaking snag and grab as it was bopped off of like 2 guys, and then he caught it and he went to the end zone with it. Like, he finished a nice night with 8 receptions for 112 yards and 1 touchdown. You had James Cook over 100 total yards. That's rushing and receiving. He had more receiving than rushing, but he had a touchdown rushing, and he caught the balls when needed to make conversions. And then the man, the golden arm himself, Josh freaking Allen. This man is just a solid piece of work. He's a great human being. Walking into the game day with the Children's Child Foundation hat that they had made him, right? He does a lot of community work. This is a very good person and a very good football player. He bombed it out for 394 passing yards, about 35 rush yards, but the important fact number on that, though, is that he had 2 pass touchdown and 2 rushing touchdown. And in doing so, led the Buffalo Bills to a final field goal where, they actually could have been even more than 1 point. But they had a game-winning field goal that Matt Prater came in earlier this week because Mr. Tyler Bass was a no-go. He's a no-go. He's injured. So Matt Prater comes in off the damn practice squad and kicks them to victory this week. So after a 41-40 victory by the Buffalo Bills, I think the sky's the limit for this team because really, I know it's one game, but let's be real though. Baltimore was probably favored in some respect over Buffalo. Baltimore was, I feel. They revamped their defense. Their defense got shot to shit last night. But again, is this because of the player they faced? Because let's not forget, Josh Allen is elite. Okay? No, he doesn't have the Super Bowl rings yet. But he's working on it. Besides, let's not forget, Peyton Manning didn't get his first Super Bowl ring until his, 7th or 8th season, for Christ's sake. Sometimes these John Elway, for goodness sake. You want to talk about all-time legendary quarterbacks? He didn't get his Super Bowl rings till the end of his career. He played in 3. That's not to say Allen can't play in 3, but again, we just went through the first stage of whatever Patrick Mahomes' career was, and he's the golden standard right now. I hate to say it, but he has 3 Super Bowls, also 2 losses, but he's been to the game 5 times. You can't take that away from him. So at the end of the day, for regular season anyway, yeah, Josh Allen's elite. He went out and he put that team on his back. And you know what? That is what you want in your quarterback. For him to be stepping up and taking hold of the mantle when it needed to be done. But you know what, though? That's going to do it for us for now. But don't forget to tune in to the very end of the segment, though, because we will have Monday night results, as this is the pre-recorded into the finish. But that's all the time for now anyway. I'm Sergeant Holio. This is the BearDown Corner. You can catch us every Tuesday at 6 o'clock General Mountain Time, 8 o'clock Eastern, on Spotify and anywhere else that you can listen to your podcasts, also on YouTube. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. And again, we'll have the follow-up on the Monday night game following this. Hey, everybody, this is the BearDown Corner after Monday Night Football edition. Here is your live results. 27-24 was the final. The Bears faltered. We dropped the ball with an 11-point lead. They took a 10-point lead after that, so we let a 21 points allowed instantly. Boom. We're down by 3 after a Roma Dunze catch for a touchdown, but it wasn't enough as the Minnesota Vikings decided to just basically run out the clock, punt, and we had one fake last play where we bounced it around everywhere. Honestly, I was pretty disappointed with the outcome, not because of the way the football game went, but because it's the same old goddamn Bears. Every time we take a lead because of defense, we had a 75-yard interception return touchdown tonight. We scored just the same amount of points as our goddamn offense did in most of the game. Prior to that last touchdown that we talked about, Roma Dunze catching, yeah, we had literally scored the same amount of points with defense. You got to turn something around, Ben Johnson, and I hope you ream into those boys this week because they need a good goddamn talking to. Because honestly, that performance was shit. And from a hardcore Bears fan that is honestly just so goddamn tired of watching the same old song and dance, you better get this shit right. Like, if we falter with what we've been given and how Ryan Poles has made for all these signings and draft picks and putting it all together, and you can't get it right, something's got to change, man. Something's got to change. And this is more than just a week 1 loss. I know it's a week 1 loss. I don't give a shit. There's 16 more games to come. But this is just one of those defeats that when you look on it, I hope these boys resonate with this shit and they go off the rest of the season. I really do. Because if you can't learn from this, you might as well just be calling yourselves the New Orleans Saints at this point. But at least they have an excuse. They don't have a fucking quarterback. Derek Carr retired on them. Anyway, That is the hot take from Sergeant Julio for the Monday Night Football edition. That's the end of week 1. Come back and check us out next week when we have all your week 2 highlights and all your information to catch you up on the NFL. Hope you all have a great sleep, and we will catch you next week here on the Bear Down